dive into the ancient world of the Celts, where the mournful cries of keening women once echoed through the hills and valleys. This was no ordinary lament, but a deep-rooted tradition, a communal outpouring of grief that resonated with the raw emotion of loss. Keening, or Cowynid in Gaelic, was a crucial part of the Celtic culture, a vital link in the chain of life and death. These keening women, or Bean Cewint as they were known, were the emotional pillars of their communities. Their cries were not just expressions of sorrow, but also a celebration of the life that once was. Imagine, if you will, the scene at a Celtic wake or funeral. The keening woman stands at the center, her voice rising and falling in a sorrowful song that reflects the community's collective grief. The keening song, with its intricate melodies and heart-wrenching lyrics, added an emotional depth to the mourning process, making it a cathartic experience for all involved. But as time passed, this rich tradition began to fade. The patriarchal societies of the day viewed the raw, emotional power of the keening women as a threat. Keening, with its overt expressions of female emotion, was seen as a challenge to the stoic, controlled image of the masculine. The Catholic Church, a powerful patriarchal institution, disapproved of the practice, linking it to pagan rituals and superstition. This disapproval, coupled with societal changes, led to the suppression and near extinction of keening. The once respected keening women were marginalized, their voices silenced by the forces of patriarchy. Keening, a practice that was once so interwoven with the fabric of Celtic life, was now a mere whisper, a ghost of its former self. The keening women, who had once stood strong in the face of death, were now shadows, their voices lost to the winds of time. As the last notes of the keening song faded, a silence fell over the Celtic lands, marking the end of a poignant tradition. But even as the echoes of the keening women's cries vanished, a new song of sorrow began to rise, a song that would become the haunting wail of the Banshee. The Catholic Church frowned upon the practice of keening, seeing it as a threat to patriarchal control. This disapproval was not without its consequences. To understand this, let's delve into the complex narrative that weaves together the decline of keening and the rise of patriarchal dominance. In the Gaelic Celtic tradition, keening was more than just a ritual. It was a form of emotional release, a communal catharsis that allowed the community to mourn together. However, the Catholic Church saw this differently. Keening was perceived as a threat, a disruption to the established order. The emotional power of keening women was seen as a challenge to the patriarchal control held by the Church. The Church's opposition was not a sudden declaration. It was a slow, creeping disapproval that steadily infiltrated the communities practicing keening. The keening women, once revered for their ability to express communal grief, were now seen as disruptors, their mournful cries perceived as unseemly and disruptive to the solemnity of funeral rites. This opposition did not stop at mere disapproval. The Church took active steps to suppress keening, pushing for its elimination in the name of maintaining decorum and order. The result? The near extinction of a once thriving tradition. The mournful cries of keening women were gradually silenced, replaced by the sterile solemnity imposed by the Church. This suppression was more than just the loss of a tradition. It was a blow to the cultural identity of the Gaelic Celtic communities. The emotional depth that keening added to wakes and funerals was replaced by a sense of loss, a void that could never truly be filled. The Church's disapproval, rooted in patriarchal control, led to the near extinction of keening. This was not just a loss for the communities that once found solace in the mournful cries of keening women. It was a loss for the rich tapestry of human culture and expression. The Church's disapproval was the death knell for keening, a tradition that once brought solace to grieving communities. And so, the Song of Sorrow was silenced, leaving behind a haunting echo that still resonates today. The women who kept the tradition of keening alive faced stigmatization and marginalization. A heavy statement, but one that rings with truth. The women who dared to keep the age-old custom of keening alive were often met with scorn and dismissal, their mournful songs deemed inappropriate, even uncivilized, by a society conditioned by patriarchal norms. In the wake of the Church's disapproval, these keening women were painted as unruly, hysterical, even dangerous. Their deep emotional expression was seen as a threat, a challenge to the staid, controlled mourning practices that were gaining favor. This stigmatization was not limited to mere whispers and sidelong glances. It had tangible, devastating effects. Many of these women were pushed to the fringes of society, their once respected role as mourners reduced to a source of ridicule. They were excluded from the communal life they once played an integral part in, their songs of sorrow silenced, their presence unwelcome at wakes and funerals. This social exclusion was a profound loss, a severing of ties that left many of these women isolated and bereft. The consequences didn't stop at social exclusion. In some tragic cases, this marginalization and isolation led to addiction. Stripped of their community, their purpose, and their voice, some keening women turned to alcohol or other substances as a means of coping. A sorrowful echo of the grief they once expressed in song, this substance abuse was a stark testament to the cost of cultural suppression. With their voices silenced, these women bore the heavy cost of cultural change. The mournful cries of the keening women were quieted, their cultural significance diminished, their personal lives marred by stigmatization and exclusion. But their story is not just one of loss, it is a testament to the resilience of tradition, the power of expression, and the enduring echo of a song of sorrow. Even in silence, the keening women continue to resonate, a haunting reminder of a tradition lost and a society changed. The Banshee, a fearsome figure in folklore, became a symbol of the anguish and resentment of keening women. This spectral entity, a staple of Celtic mythology, is often depicted as a wailing woman, her cries echoing through the night. Her name, derived from the Gaelic words Bean City, literally means woman of the fairy mound. But what is the connection between the Banshee and the keening women? In the depths of Celtic tradition, the Banshee was seen as a death omen. Her wails, akin to the keening women's mournful songs, were believed to foretell an impending death. This association is no coincidence. The keening women, marginalized and stigmatized, found a reflection of their sorrow in the Banshee's lament. As keening faced suppression, the Banshee's image transformed from a benign fairy woman to a terrifying specter. Her mournful cries became a chilling reminder of the silenced keening women. The Banshee, like the keening women, was pushed to the periphery of society, her voice echoing the grief and resentment of those who had lost their cultural expression. The Banshee's wail, once a memento of the Celtic tradition of mourning, became a horrifying reminder of the patriarchal suppression of this practice. She became a symbol of the anguish and resentment felt by the keening women, their sorrow immortalized in her haunting cries. In the face of patriarchal challenges, the Banshee's terrifying image and her association with keening women serve as a stark reminder of the cultural losses endured by the Celtic people. Her chilling wail, echoing through the night, is a testament to the resilience of traditions and the power of cultural expression. As we delve deeper into the Celtic tradition, we find that the Banshee's lament is not just a tale of horror or a death omen. It is a story of resilience, a symbol of cultural loss, and a reflection of the struggles of keening women. The Banshee's chilling wail became a haunting reminder of the cultural losses endured by the Celtic people. The intertwined fates of keening women, and the Banshee serve as a poignant reminder of the resilience of traditions in the face of patriarchal challenges. In the shadowy folds of history, we've traced the path of keening, a deeply emotional Celtic tradition. We've journeyed through its cultural roots, understanding its communal significance and the profound depth of sorrow it brought to wakes and funerals. Keening was more than a mere practice. It was an integral part of the Gaelic Celtic identity, a cathartic expression of grief and loss. We've also delved into the darker side of this narrative, where patriarchal opposition cast a long suppressive shadow over keening. The Catholic Church, perceiving a threat to its control, sought to extinguish the mournful cries of keening women. This opposition led to the suppression and near extinction of a tradition that had once echoed through the hills and valleys of Celtic lands. Our journey took a stark turn as we confronted the harsh realities faced by keening women. Stigmatized, marginalized, and often socially excluded, these women bore the brunt of the Church's disapproval. In some cases, the weight of their ostracization led to devastating struggles with addiction. And in the midst of this sorrowful tale, we found the Banshee, a terrifying figure in folklore. Associated with keening women, the Banshee became a symbol of the anguish and resentment felt towards those responsible for driving keeners away. Her eerie cries echoed the lament of a lost tradition, a chilling reminder of the cultural cost of patriarchal opposition. As we reach the end of our exploration, it's time to reflect on these intertwined fates and the resilience they demonstrate. Despite the challenges, despite the suppression, the tradition of keening lives on, if only in the haunting wails of the Banshee, reminding us of a past that refuses to be silenced. As we reflect on the chilling story of keening's demise and the terrifying origin of the Banshee, let us honor the resilience of traditions that once echoed through mournful cries.